It's a noisy bunch in here this morning. That means they're awake. We should be able to take care of that in just a couple of minutes. I can't even hear myself in here, but I think you probably can hear me. In case you have not figured out, I am not Bill Heyman. Bill Heyman was supposed to be the moderator. However, his mother passed away last Monday, and they're taking care of things, so keep those folks in your prayers if you would, please. My name is Tom Dillander. I'll be one of the panelists along with Elmer Sheffield, owner and producer of ESP Records. We're going to do our best to cover music licensing for you. We'll at least try to answer as many questions as we can for you. If we don't have the answers, we'll find the attorneys that can get the answers for you, because that's really what it boils down to, is those folks. Real quick, I'm going to cover a couple of companies that we work with our type of music. Number one is Harry Fox. The Harry Fox Agency is an agency set up for mechanical licensing. And what we mean by that is, if we want to make a new piece of music for our activity, we have to procure a mechanical license. That gives us permission to go into a studio and remake that song. Okay? I emphasize remake. Not sample, not copy, but remake. Okay? And that's strictly what Harry Fox does. They give us a mechanical license to do that. They take that money and send part of it back out to the publishers, the original publishers of the music. The other agencies that we typically work with is BMI and ASCAP. They are performance licensing companies. They give us permission to play music. And as most of you know, several years ago, we negotiated, and I say we, CALLERLAB, RoundLab, and a few other folks negotiated contracts to use that music. It covers about 98% of what we use in square and round dancing today. There's about 2% that's outside that realm, and some other agencies handle that. But for the most part, we're covered with almost everything we use. But I have to emphasize again, that is a performance license. It only gives you permission to play that music. Okay? Having said that, and I know that's fairly general, but I'm going to leave it at that. And I'm going to turn it over to Elmer. Elmer's going to talk to you more about, from a producer standpoint, what he does, how he does it, and who he has to work with. Elmer Sheffield.
Thank you. Thank you. As Tom said, I don't know everything there is about licensing. Probably don't know very much. But years ago, when we produced Square Dance records, we just we heard a song that we liked, and we said, man, that'll make a good Square Dance record. And we went to the studio and we recorded it, and we sent it out to have it pressed, and we sold them, and nobody said anything. And then at some point in time, just as with our performance licensing, the people who own the music and the copyrights said, hey, you know, these guys are reproducing our records and selling, 4 or 5 million copies of them, which was a little over exaggerated. But anyway, they came down and they said, starting now, you have to have a mechanical license to reproduce a piece of music that's copyrighted. We found out right away that the people who did the record pressing, and at one time it was mostly United Record Pressing, and then Tom went into the business, but they won't press a record now unless we have a license. If I send Tom a piece of music, a tape to be done as a Square Dance song, and I don't send him a license, he don't press it because he gets in trouble over it. So what we do now is, if myself or one of my artists that records for me sends me a song, calls me up and says, hey, I heard this song, I'd like to do it as a Square Dance, then I go online to the Harry Fox Agency, which, as Tom explained to you, covers a lot of writers and people who own copyrights, and I ask for a mechanical license to reproduce that song as a Square Dance. And they sell us a limited license. Usually we add, in fact, the minimum they will even sell us is 500 copies. And of course, I come from the day when 500 copies was a drop in the bucket. We sold a lot more than that. Now we would hope and pray we could sell 500 records, but it costs us about, I think, I may be wrong, Tom, but I think it's about 9 cents per record for the permission to reproduce it, plus a little handling fee, and it ends up costing us about $60 per record to get a mechanical. Now, there's few cases that Harry Fox does not have the rights to a song. If we ask for permission to do a particular song, and we go online and we say we want to do this song, we get a sheet that shows up, which I'm sorry I don't have copies, but this is a request for a license, and right away the agency will say we don't have that control of that song. You've got to go to BMI or ASCAP, and if you go through them and they don't have it, then you start searching. I've gone as far as Bug Music in California to get permission to do records. In a few cases, I've even gone to the individual who wrote the song because he never copyrighted it, but it's still his song, and you have to get an agreement. Sometimes the Harry Fox agency will say we hold 30% of this song or 50% of this song, and the rest belongs to, and they usually will tell you, then you've got to go to those people and also apply. So we have to have a license for every song. And as Tom said, that license only gives me permission to re-record it as a square dance song, limited number. I can't just take their music and remove the vocal, for instance, and put it out as a record. I am recutting that record, reproducing it. And in the old days, they used to tell us if you use so many beats or so much of an original song, then you had to have a license. I don't know about all that. I just know now we have to have a license for every song we do. And if we don't, like I say, they could get us in real trouble. I'll give you just a short, quick little story that you may find interesting. Several years ago, we recorded a song, and this was before it got so they came down on us so hard. But anyway, I recorded the song as a square dance, and it was a pretty good seller. And I got a letter from a music company, and the letter started out real nice. It said, I want to congratulate you on reproduction of one of our songs. You did a wonderful job, used good instrumentation and all that. And if you'll be kind enough to send us a check for $5,000, we won't prosecute you. So, needless to say, I got on the telephone and called, because I was scared to death, and called the person who sent me the letter, and we talked for a while. And it just happened that the gentleman owned the rights to the song, and when I told him what we were doing and the numbers we were dealing with, he said, "Oh, just forget it." He said, I'll send you some more songs. But it was an eye-opener for me, because I got to think, and even when they came to us and said, you have to have a license from now on, I got nervous, because I said, that's fine starting today, but what about the 300 I've already done? Because I got to thinking, well, $60 a song, not too much, but when you do it, multiply it by this. So to make a long story short, they kind of grandfathered us in, and they said, we'll forget all those if you'll start abiding by the rules. But that's basically what we do. We ask for a license. Only one time that I can remember where we turned down by the Harry Fox agency, and it happened to be a Johnny Cash tune, and Johnny Cash had just died, and the House of Cash had put a hold on all of his music at the time, and they said, we don't want any of his music reproduced for anything. And later they did issue me a license. A couple of cases I've actually run down the individual who wrote a song and got permission from them. And Tom can tell you, I'm sure that sometimes that takes a week or two to find who owns a song and who can actually give you the permission. But that's my part of it, is just as a producer, I don't know the technical part like he does about CDs and MP3s, and I just know that when we want to record a popular song for square dance, we have to apply for a license, and we do go through the Harry Fox agency. Usually online we can apply, and within a half hour I have an email back saying, here's your license for this song, go for it. And it's, like I say, it comes from Harry Fox agency, and it spells out who the songwriters are, who's going to, this particular song here had 2 people that own 50%. It tells who they were, who the artist on the record's going to be, what the royalty is, how many you're going to produce, and we are supposed to, if we run over the 500, we're supposed to go back to them and say, hey, we've done another 100, another 200 now. Do we do that? So far, we haven't sold 500. Not recently. And before I turn this back to Tom, in all honesty, I started recording in 1969, so I've been around a long time. And in those days, people ask me a lot of times, how many records did you sell? Seriously, we used to sell in excess of 10,000 copies of a square dance record, one square dance record. Today, I'd probably hug Tom's neck if he sold 200 of something. So we're just, it's really a different situation today. But as far as licensing, we got to have a license before we can do it.
Okay. Any real quick questions? I'll add a little bit to that. We're in a little different situation in the fact that with Harry Fox, we have a different kind of contract with them since we are a production house. I get about 90 licenses a month through Harry Fox. So they know me pretty well, and I know them pretty well. I've talked to their attorneys, and we talk about once a week. They're doing their best. But keep in mind, it's just a tremendous amount of paperwork. I know Elmer will tell you, sometimes when you apply for a license, you might get 10 pieces of paper to sign and have to send back or what have you. We've finally got everything online now that there's not even any paperwork at all, but it's a pretty big process, and it's a pretty important process. Unfortunately, we're talking pennies by the time it gets to the publishers, but they keep track of that stuff, and they're going to keep track of that stuff. And that's okay. Elmer mentioned the CDs and the MP3s. We actually have to apply a license for every format. Okay, and the way we do that is if Elmer puts out a tune, he pretty much gets his own license for his vinyl. We produce the CDs and MP3s. We go in and we buy a new license for the CDs and the MP3s. We have to report to Harry Fox every quarter how many we've sold. We don't buy a license for 500 like he does for the vinyl. We actually pay per copy that we're going to produce. And that's just the way they set it up through a production house. So every quarter we have to tell them what we've sold, what we've produced, which is okay. We don't have to spend quite as much money up front, and it makes it a little easier for us to make the CDs and the MP3s. But the important thing is we actually have to have a license for each format. And that's worked out pretty good. A couple things he mentioned. He does most of his licensing through Harry Fox, and he tracks down some individuals. A lot of times when Harry Fox doesn't have the authority to give us a license, we go through BMI and ASCAP to find out who the publisher is. We contact the publisher directly if we can. Most of the time, the publishers will turn us over to an attorney. It's a legal thing, a very serious legal thing. In particular, Jimmy Buffett tunes, Billy Joe Royal tunes, Ray Conniff tunes, those type of things. Some of the pop artists, some of the country artists, they are independent. They maintain their own business, and you'll go through their lawyer or you won't get it done. And it's more expensive. It's paperwork. The other thing about licensing is it's very hard for them to track what we're doing or somebody else is doing, especially since we're only asking for 200-300 copies. when somebody else is asking for 10,000 copies. Okay, so it's pretty tough. But at least we can get those licenses. As far as Harry Fox, if you want more information, it's Harry, spelled out, fox.com. It's not HFA. It's actually spelled out. You can go online. They more than welcome all your suggestions and questions. It's a very, very big agency. There's a lot of information on the web that you can review. The same way with ASCAP and BMI. It's all out there. They'll explain licensing to you. They'll tell you about how they take care of their writers and their publishers and what have you. So spend a little time checking that out. About 5 years ago, we thought we could get away from licensing a lot of stuff because we were public domain. We're using public domain music. We found out real quick, no. Public domain music is about that much of what we use. A few hoedowns. Even if the hoedowns have a familiar melody, it's a very good chance it's not public domain. The old school was if it's less than 15 beats of the music or 4 bars or whatever, you could use it. Not today. Give you a prime example. Happy Birthday is owned by Paul McCartney. If you want to use it, you pay for it. You can't even go out and make your own version of that today free. It's getting a little tougher, but you can do it. At least you can license it. One thing about music is if it has ever been produced and has ever been released through the airways, public airways, you cannot be denied a mechanical license for a tune. Okay? A few years ago, we really struggled on some pieces of music, and we finally had to go back to the Library of Congress through the Copyright Office. There is a law. If it's ever been published and released through the airways, you cannot be denied. Now, the problem is finding that person to give you permission. That's the hard part. Doesn't have to be Harry Fox. Doesn't have to be the publisher. You may chase for a year till you find that person. What we've even done over the course of the years, if we cannot find that person, regardless of what we've tried to do, you can submit a letter to the Library of Congress. You can pay them a fee, and they will issue a compulsory license to you to get that song done. Now, having said all that, it ends up costing you about $150, $250 to do that. Elmer will tell you it ain't worth it. You move on to another song. Seen a couple people come in and reminded me of something. We had a situation last week. A producer wants to produce a song. It's a medley. It's got 5 tunes in it. Guess what? It's 5 times that mechanical license. You have to buy a mechanical license for each song in that medley. Pretty tough to produce one of those. And, well, you can do it. It's just not going to make any money. You're going to make less money. It is pretty tough. If you're interested in public domain music, there's a website called pdinfo.com that lists public domain music. It's a good chance if it's not there, it's not public domain. They're not 100% accurate. I found that out, but I use them as a rule of thumb. If it's not on there, I flip right back to Harry Fox and buy the license. Question? Microphone. We have a mic. If you would, please state your name and where you're from. We are being recorded.
Don Brown, Temple, Texas. Sorry about that. What about music that you do on your own? You own the music. I don't want to copyright it, but I own the music.
Okay, first, you're talking about a piece of music that you have written, personally written. You're the composer, you're the owner.
Right.
First thing you'd want to do is you really want to copyright it.
Okay.
Don't have to, but you should.
Okay.
There's no law that says that, but think about it. If you don't copyright it and a TV show or a producer or anybody suddenly says, hey, this would be neat to use on our show, they can use it free.
Okay.
They can't you can't make them pay anything unless it's copyrighted. But if you do write something, if you do produce something and it's an original works, you do not have to get a mechanical license. You do have to sign a piece of paper saying that and give it to the production house.
And that was the next question. Do you need to?
We have to have something on file. When the FBI decides to pay us a visit, and you can laugh because it has happened. We had a production house that we were going through for years. They got a visit and they got shut down.
I didn't mention a while ago, but there have been a few occasions when we created a hoedown. Now, if we actually create that, we don't take charge up Cripple Creek and deviate from it, but we actually sit down and we make it up, then I don't have to get a mechanical license for that. But I do have to send Tom just a little note or something on a piece of paper that says this is an original composition by me and it belongs to me. Now, I've never sent off to get a copyright on it. I could, I guess, but just what I'm saying is, in that case, I do not have to apply to Harry Fox, as long as it's an original hoedown that we just sit there and picked it out and made it up.
Another question? I don't know where the mic got off to, so we might have to have a runner.
Dan McGovern, Arlington Heights, Illinois. I've actually recorded and written music way back in the past. It's a good idea to have somebody who knows the industry very well to check to make sure that you haven't infringed on somebody's music somewhere down the line, because you can have a problem if you do that.
That's true, especially if it's country music. There's 4 chords, so it depends on the progression. It depends on the progression you're using. Yeah, you probably infringed several times, but it's a good chance that you're okay.
Bruce Simbers from Ellicott City, Maryland. How do you deal with music from foreign countries?
It's the exact same way. There's GEMA. There's other agencies over there that are very similar to the Harry Fox and the ASCAP and BMI people. Typically in the foreign countries, there's usually one agency that handles both the performance and the mechanical side of it, but it's still required. In fact, if you'll look very closely at the Harry Fox licensing, in a lot of cases they prohibit foreign music or prohibit you selling it outside the U.S. Doesn't mean we don't do it. It just says they prohibit it. No. Top button and leave it on.
Now I didn't touch a button. Okay. I didn't do a thing. What, if anything, comes under the category of fair use? And specifically, I'm thinking if a caller wanted to record something that he did strictly so that he could listen to himself later. He's not really interested in the music in the background. He wants to hear. He's recording something, his calling, so he can analyze and improve his calling. Is anything covered under fair use at all?
I would have to ask the question, what kind of music is he using? Are you talking about if he plays a square dance record?
Yes, I'm saying that if I were calling a square dance and I wanted to find out, go home that night later and listen to what I called and say I could improve in some way, so I just stick a tape recorder up there. Am I breaking the law by doing that, or does that get covered by fair use if it's strictly for my own use?
Okay, it's actually not fair use. You're covered under BMI and ASCAP for that. You've played the music. You already have your license to play that music. You're allowed to record yourself, critique yourself, play it at home, play it for anybody at home that will listen to it, and do whatever you want to. You are not allowed to take that recording and do anything with it, like make a copy of it and then go play it back out in public. But you are allowed to use it at home for any of your own personal purposes.
Thank you.
I want to ask Tom a question here, because it's been asked of me a lot of times, and I don't really have the answer. Callers will call me and say they want to make a CD that they want to sell at their dances, and will I give them permission to use one or two of my songs or whatever? And to be honest with you, I have never known really what legal rights I have to pass that on to a caller, because I have a mechanical to produce the record, but I've never known whether that's okay for me to say to you, sure, you can use my record and make you a CD with 10 or 12 songs. Go sell it at your dance. So I'm going to ask Tom, does he know what happens in a case like that?
Okay, thanks, Elmer. Actually, that's probably one of the big topics, and that is in part of the write-up, and one of the big things we want to cover, and we'll just go ahead and do it now. First of all, Elmer has the mechanical license to make the 45. I have procured the license for him to do the CD and the MP3. That's the end of the story. That only covers those three mediums. If Billy calls Elmer and wants to produce a CD with 10 songs, even if all 10 of them are ESP records, Elmer can say, yeah, Bill, you can use my music, but Bill Harrison still has to go get a mechanical license to make that CD. He has to get in touch with Harry Fox. He has to give him the list of the 10 songs, the publisher information, and he will have to pay them a negotiated fee. And it can be $45.50 per tune, per track of that CD for a minimum of 500 copies. So if he's going to do 10 songs, it's going to cost him $450. Assuming that Elmer's given him permission, and he should have that in writing. If he chooses to use a couple of Elmers and a couple of Chaparrals and a couple of Lumac or a couple of other producers, he should and is required by law to get written permission to use that music. Okay? Elmer's license will not carry over for him at all. Even if Bill wanted to just do the vocal side of it, that license does not carry over to anybody other than Elmer to make the 45s. That's where it ends. Okay. Having said that, a production house like myself, we have special contracts with Harry Fox, and we've negotiated. We can produce a CD for anybody that wants to put songs on a CD or an MP3 at a negotiated fee. We publicize the fact that we can do a CD with 10 songs for about $3, including the license fees. That's pretty reasonable. Okay, you can send us the 10 songs on a master with the written permission from the producers. We get the licenses, and we can make your CDs. Okay. And you don't have to spend the $450 and somebody's phone's going off. Okay, so that's a real big issue, but you need to understand, even if Bill said, hey, I'm getting ready to go to Europe or I'm going to Japan and I want to take 50 CDs with me of my music and give them away, they're promo, it's illegal. He cannot do that legally. Okay, not only can he get in trouble, but Elmer can get in trouble because it's Elmer's music. Okay? If there's not a mechanical license paid for to cover that particular medium, it's 100% illegal. We have a question?
Yes, Otto Waterman from Trinity, Texas. I was in the video production business, and there's been a big discussion on YouTube about the showing of square dances. And I am totally under the impression that if you're showing a square dance and that music is licensed music, you don't have permission to show that square dance. I went to, like you go through licenses, in the video production business, I went through hell and back to videotape an elementary school and show it on Access Television. It took 4 months to have all the signatures of all the kids, parents. You can get sued royally for showing people's pictures on television. Now, YouTube is in another world, but if you're showing music and you're playing that music and it's predominant, I truly believe you're going to end up in trouble. Am I correct?
That's correct. In fact, it doesn't even have to be predominant. It can be background music. You have to have a license for that. Okay? Have a question?
Don Thompson, Paradise, California. Here's a question for Elmer. It's something I've wondered about for a long time. What if one of us wants to accompany ourselves on an instrument with just a standard old common song, but it's come out, it's been used on a square dance record just because, or whatever. How does that work?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
All right. I'll reveal myself. I play accordion.
Okay.
Yes, it's true. Anyway.
He's out of the closet.
And as an adjunct to one-nighters and whatnot, it would be fun to accompany myself. How does that work in this whole realm?
Okay. You're perfectly legal. You're doing nothing wrong. You're entertaining. All you're doing is accompanying a piece of music that you already have, a BMI and ASCAP license, which is the performance side. Okay? You're doing nothing wrong.
Roy Goddard from New Jersey. Speaking on the video aspect of licensing, that has gotten increasingly more difficult because it's a different license. If you're going to have music in like what we produced, the instructional DVDs, and there was the problem with filming your square dancing to put out on public access, whatever. In addition to the permission from the producers, you have to get what's called a synchronization license. And as of 2002, Harry Fox no longer does that. You have to go to each individual producer of each, or publisher of each individual piece of music. So it's a very difficult process.
That's definitely true. We think we have trouble. You try to make a video and get it available for sale, or a DVD. It's extremely. I need to preface one thing. I am not a lawyer or an attorney. I'm not giving anybody legal advice. I'm not charging you. I'm giving you my information that I have acquired over the years. If I say something wrong, I'll apologize up front, and I'll be, but I'm giving you what I've been told, okay? And if having said that,
I wanted to know. This is Rich Reel from Northern California. I want to know who you would trust to get information that is a lawyer that maybe you could afford, we all could afford, that we could go to and ask questions. Who do you trust?
I trust the Harry Fox attorneys. I mean, they're the ones that's collecting my money and turning around, taking that money and giving it to the publishers. Over the years, I've spent tens of thousands of dollars on attorney fees trying to buy copyright licenses for pop and country western music for the round dance world. I found one attorney that took my money, and I never got a license. I found another attorney that told me why. No attorney can give you copyright licensing for anybody's piece of music. That is strictly held by the publisher, the writer, the producer, and the recording company. Nobody else can give you permission for copywriting of music. That's not mechanicals, that's copyright. In other words, if I want to make a full-blown copy of it. And so when you say, who can you trust? If you want mechanicals, you go through Harry Fox. If you want royalties, you go directly to the recording company itself. And that's the only way legally it can be done. And be prepared for 99.9 rejection. They cannot afford to give anybody a license to reproduce their music 100% because they cannot police it. So their easiest answer is no. Or you negotiate a contract for no less than 10,000 copies. That's outside our world.
So let me maybe put it very close to home. Say I've heard some alternative music, and I really like it, but it isn't quite right for square dancing. It needs to be rephrased, recut, maybe the tempo shifted. And I've gone through and done all that work, and I've got this beautiful piece of music. Caller walks up to me and says, God, that's such a great song. I would love to have that song. But I'm really taking somebody else's copyrighted material and some yet other person's performance of that copyrighted material. Is that like just about impossible to get?
It's more than just about impossible. It is impossible. Yes. You can use it. Now, keep in mind, you've went to the trouble of editing and changing it around and what have you. You can use that piece of music for your own personal use, assuming you bought that copy. Doesn't mean you downloaded it free off the internet or someone gave it to you. Now you're in trouble. But if you purchased it through Walmart.com, or you went out and bought the CD, or you somehow purchased that piece of music, you can do what you just did for your own personal use. You cannot give a copy to a friend at all. You can't sell it to him. You can't say, well, here's what I did. Now, he can go buy his own, and you can guide him through that process, okay? But you cannot legally give him a copy to use, or let anybody record that version and use it. That will get you in prison. Keep in mind, mechanicals are different than copyright licensing. Copyright licensing is the worst offense there is in the music industry. That is piracy, that is theft, and that is prison. You know, it's very, very serious. Mechanicals is bad enough. You know, we get enough trouble. Okay, that's the fees or the what I'm looking for. The punishment is $20,000 on mechanicals per tune, per medium. Copywriting is prison. It's very, very serious.
Then I'm taking Al Frazier from Texas. And my question is going to be twofold, but the first one is, say I want to make a CD and give it to somebody, and it's records that are tunes that I have already purchased from you, and I do at my dance. Is it legal? Is this the same thing as what you've just said about if I make a CD of those, me doing the song, and make a CD to give it away, not even sell it, but just give it away? That's still the same thing. Is that correct?
You're 100% illegal.
Yes.
Elmer can sue you. The producer, the publisher of the original format can sue you. The writer can sue you. There's so many lawsuits that you're opening yourself up to, even if you give it away.
Right. Okay. All right. The second question was on videotaping. Say I'm videotaping my lessons and to send to CALLERLAB for certification. Do I need to get signatures from each one of those people that I am videotaping? What kind of trouble can I get in for that? Because they require me to send in a tape, say for the teaching certification. They want a tape of your lessons, of some portions of your lessons, and to see how you're teaching and what you're saying and what you're doing. Is that illegal?
That's a new one for me.
I can answer that one. As being in the production business, if you do not get a signed release and at least pay $1 to the person you're shooting, and they get angry at you, they can sue you later for using their image. We did corporate videos for Exxon and Texaco and a bunch. We always had signatures. We always paid, because if they were ever terminated, then they could sue for using their image. So always cover yourself.
I think he's more concerned about the music side of it.
No, he was talking about the images of the people.
Both?
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
The music side of it, I would go to CALLERLAB and ask them what their criteria is. I'm guessing, and this is just strictly a guess on my part, that heads are being turned on that particular issue. It's because you are copying something you did, you're submitting something as part of a requirement for certification and what have you. It's not being used for anything other than critiquing for an application. I'm not going to tell you that's 100% correct or legal, but I'm guessing that since it's part of a procedure
Is that violating, though, the music?
I'm sure it is.
Use.
Yeah, I mean, folks, there's really no gray area. I'll tell you right up front, I guess we kind of dance around this thing. There is no gray area. That doesn't mean we're not going to do it. That doesn't mean it's not being done every day. But there is no gray area. You can call up Harry Fox or BMI and say, I'm doing all these one-night stands at nursing homes. That's all I'm doing. They don't care. They have a piece of paper that legally binds them called copyright. And that's all they have to say. Hey, it's a law. So, I mean, that's really cutting through it, folks.
Harry Nelson, Oklahoma National Executive Committee. And you brought up a question we sat back here talking about. Exhibition groups and teens at a national, parents are wanting to come in and take videos. People are wanting to take videos of the exhibition groups. And the way I'm reading this, if any one of those people want to sue, they can sue. Is that correct?
Pictures on cell phones?
Yeah, you can't police pictures on cell phones, no way. But they could put up a sign, no videoing. Because I know in the Oklahoma in the 52nd, we did not allow people to come into the teen room and take pictures because they were teenagers, and there's a law there without permission. But the way I'm understanding this, you can't even videotape an exhibition group for your own pleasure.
I produced about 35 videos on marketing square dancing in the Houston market, or Access Channel. To cover ourselves, we put on the back of the ticket, you will be videotaped at this event. There was a sign at the door. By entering, you are given permission to have your image put on television. If you don't want your image put on television, please do not enter the hall. That's the only way you can cover yourself, because there will be someone that will get upset that they missed a square dance move and you shown them by accident making a mistake.
That's a neat rhythm. Gil Martin from Illinois. Are you aware of what iTunes is proposing now by charging more for each piece of music that you can buy over the internet? And then you'll have a license or something that will allow you to have that copied. I
think there's a misinterpretation there. I would strongly suggest that's very seriously reviewed, because I would guarantee you that's definitely a misinterpretation. iTunes would not have permission to tell anybody they can reproduce their music. They have bought a license from that company to sell that song one download at a time. And even if you think that, go look at the copyright law. It says that copy you've purchased is for you and you only. You can do nothing else with it. I would think that's a very wrong interpretation. I mean, somebody can stand me corrected if they check it out, but I think we're totally wrong on that interpretation.
Chris Jensen, New Mexico. I read the news story on what iTunes is doing. They are selling it without digital rights management. So for the new cuts, for $1.29 instead of 99 cents, you can get it without any copy protection, digital rights management applied to that, so that you're not limited in the copies that you can make on CDs for yourself. But that doesn't change your legal obligations under the copyright laws. You know, it's for your personal use. They're not putting artificial barriers to what you can do for your personal use.
And actually, if I understand that, they're making more money off you for something you already had permission to do. We already have permission to make extra copies for our own personal use for backup. So all they're doing is making more money off of you for the people that don't know the difference.
I would add that for that extra 30 cents, you're also getting double the bit rate. on the
Okay.
music.
Wow,
so.
they're giving you higher quality. Okay.
Greg Anderson, Colorado. As you know, we can buy CDs of easy level party type calls, whether they be squares, trios, whatever, that are available that are, I suppose, could be used in school venues or that type of thing. With the future of so many of us retiring and or dying off over the next couple decades, if we are doing parties on a regular basis, let's say lodges, ranches, whatever, for the future of that organization that has us coming to do parties, at that point in time when we and conceivably no other callers in the area are available to do that, will there likely be some way that instead of them buying CDs with 3 different callers doing a program, that they would then buy those CDs and use them at the lodge for a one-nighter party program for their guests? Is there likely to be some way legally in the future that we could buy the music, do the recordings, pass it on to a production house like yours, and legally produce a CD that the lodge could use in the future when people like myself are no longer available to do that?
Yes, yes, and no. Anybody can do that, yes, as long as you buy the mechanicals. It's a long process, and what you're trying to get to is, I'm not going to be there, but they can use this CD for that night. The problem they're going to have is, do they have licensing to put that CD on and use it? Probably not.
Now, we talk about the normal type licensing, where
licensing.
As the fact that these are commercial establishments, I presume that they already have BMI, ASCAP, that type of performance licensing, but are you alluding to something slightly different?
No, that's exactly what I'm alluding to. Most of them do not, even though, and you may not be aware of this, and some of you are, BMI and ASCAP licensing is the requirement of the facility or the sponsor of the function. Not the entertainer, not the instructor, but the sponsor of the event. And so what happens is, a lot of places, rather than buying their own license, require in contract the performer to have that license. So there's a lot of schools and a lot of places that don't have BMI and ASCAP.
If this happened to be a commercial establishment that did have the licensing, then is it a yes, yes, yes?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. But somebody's going to spend some money.
Sure.
But yes, it is.
But
it's no different than what they use in schools today when their teachers go and buy online a square dance CD, and they buy a lot of them, and it has the calls on it, and they have a PE teacher instructing the students on how to do the call, and they put the CD on and play it. It's no different.
Now, if the caller came to you as a production house with, this is a two-phase question, with recordings done using square dance, round dance music, and for now I'm saying non-pop, and the organization at the other end that was going to eventually use this in the future was properly licensed, then through a financial arrangement we could get CD produced. Now the next phase of that question is, if the CD were to include line dancing used at the party, but the line dancing relied on, let's say, country western tunes, is that a whole different ballgame then as far as your end of the production?
Now you've pretty much prohibited that CD being made.
Okay.
Because you can't get the license for that other music. I mean, trust me. Yeah, trust me when I tell you that if money could do it, we would be doing it daily for pop and country western music. I would love to have that market. At one time, we thought we were this close. We were really this close. We found an agency that guaranteed me they could get me a license for every piece of music put out in the world. They had the contacts. I found out they were wrong. Because I'll repeat myself, nobody has that. No agency. There is no agency in the entire world that represents recording companies. Recording companies represent themselves. One-on-one. I talked to Capitol executives. I know Roy Gatta. Roy was here a minute ago. Roy has talked to Capitol day after day. We spent hours, hundreds and thousands of dollars talking to people and begged, literally begged, explained what we were doing, how we were going to do it, how we were going to use it. They understood it. And they said, unfortunately, we're going to tell you no. We have no way to police it. And they're right. They have no way to police it. Yeah, they can keep up with Tom Dillander doing 500 copies, but they can't keep up with the next guy that did 5,000. And so they say no. If we want that song for line dancing, we have to go in, get a mechanical, and make a new version of that music. And I mean, that's really the way it is. As far as, especially for pop and country western, even classical music, I mean, if we didn't make it as square dance producers, it's a good chance you can't get it copyrighted. You just can't get it. And we need to start accepting that fact. There's a lot of stuff going on right now, a lot of sharing of music, a lot of files out there, and it's all over the internet. You know, you can download it. I'm here to tell you there are people walking around. They're going to walk into your hall. They're going to shut you down. They're going to come to your house, and they're going to take everything you own. If you own a studio, they're going to come and take everything out of there. It's happening. We just haven't seen much of it yet, but it is happening. It's happening on a larger scale, but they also know little numbers add up. It's happening. The fact that we give it away is no excuse. None whatsoever. They don't care if you're, it's theirs. It belongs to them. You didn't get permission to use any of it and do anything with it. You can play it at your dances. BMI and ASCAP allows us to do that. That's the end of it. You can record it and use it at home. You can record it, cue over it, call over it, use it at your dances. That's the end of it. You do anything else beyond that, you are legally liable.
So you can, if you have recorded one of your dances and you end up with laryngitis, you could use a recording of your dance, lip sync to it at another dance you did? Or is that getting borderline?
Well, again, I told you earlier, there's no gray area.
Yeah. By the way, for the tape, my name is Snidely Whiplash.
The law is very straightforward. It says in the privacy of your own home. Beyond that, BMI and ASCAP can only cover the performance of the original work that you're going to use at your dance. Okay. Now, you can build you a multi-million-dollar home with 300,000 square feet and invite everybody over, and you're in the privacy of your own home.
Al Frazier from Texas. This is kind of getting away from the square dancing, but if say I have purchased some tunes from iTunes, whoever, and I've downloaded them, but I know for a fact that families, kids, whatever, are sharing that they have these sites out there and they share this music. I purchased this tune, so and so purchased another tune, and now they're sharing these tunes like this. This is the same thing. Is that correct? That it is illegal, correct?
Yes, 100%. Give you a scenario. Caller has 1,500 Square Dance records. He decides to digitally record those, move them to MP3, CD, laptop, whatever, another format. And his buddy said, boy, I sure would like to have your records. And he gives them to him. That guy is in big, big trouble. He now can no longer take his laptop or whatever format he put that music on and go outside of his home with it legally. When you buy a piece of music, you are to retain that original copy forever. Unless you get out of the business and destroy the copies. Then you can give away the original. You're free to do that. But you can't copy your music over and then sell your records or give them away to somebody. It's totally illegal. You know, and we get calls all the time. Well, I've got my stuff copied over. I'd like you to put that stuff over my records for sale. Sorry. Can't do it. I emphasize, you can't even give them away. You can't give them to your buddy to copy and him give them back to you. Folks, we're in big trouble. Not only is it illegal, but we're killing this guy over here, the producer. We estimate 50% of the music today being produced is being copied and shared. 50%. That's a big number.
That's why we're not selling 500 copies of.
But the cost is increasing. You know, 5 years ago, Elmer probably could produce a song, music, pressing, and everything, around $1,000, $1,200, somewhere in that neighborhood. Okay, for one song. Yeah, maybe as much as $1,500. You know, by the time everything's paid for. And he sold 5 years ago. He sold about 500 copies, almost about 400, I guess, somewhere in that neighborhood on an average. Okay. He recouped almost everything back within a couple $100, probably one way or the other, depending on the tune. Okay. Take those same numbers today, and now he's only selling 150. He's not going to stay in business very long. Now, the sad part of it is there's over 800 copies of his song being used.
I know this young lady back here, I talked to her last year, she's a computer whiz. I'm from the old school. I wish we had never had a computer. And I know you guys don't agree with that, but I also own a big paint and body shop where we have like 25 people, and of course we've been forced to go, everything's computer. So I understand them, but what happens now is we produce a square dance record, and an association will get together on a Sunday afternoon with that one record, and 25 guys will download it onto their computers and go call it. Well, my cost is the same, actually more than it used to be. I'm selling way, way fewer records, and I'm not in the record. I mean, guys, believe it or not, I'm not in the square dance record business for a living. I have a job. I do it because I love it, I enjoy it, and I like making music for myself and for you guys. And the only way we can continue to do it is we've got to sell enough records to at least pay for themselves. And so the next time somebody asks you to let you download one of your records or say, well, you know, call up Tom. He has that record. You can buy it, and then you can put it on your computer and go call it. It's really put a real knot in our business, because it's like he said, there may be 800,000 guys using a record that we produced, but we only sold 150, maybe 200 copies of it, and it's hard to keep producing records. So legal or not, it's a moral issue to me. Is if you want the record, buy it. You know, and I would appreciate it. And other than that, you know, you've heard what we've had to say. And yes, sir. You need a microphone.
Let me give you I want to give you a dumb as dumb do. I wanted to buy a CD from Amazon, and they had one that was used, and I only wanted one cut off of it. So I ordered the CD. When it came in, it had a different type wrapper. It did not have the original, and it had some stutter in it. So I complained to Amazon. They contacted the person in Seattle that had supplied the CD. They emailed me, can you imagine this? They said, I can't understand why that CD is something wrong with, because we've made 125 copies of it. I sent that email to Amazon, and those people are in jail.
Well, you also have to keep in mind that most CDs that are produced at home or whatever, I mean, you're using a disc that costs how much? 25 cents? And it depends on how it was recorded. I mean, you know, you're not going to get a real quality product unless you pay for it. But anyway, guys, we're right on our time limit here, so we need to wrap it up.
We go to 10 or 10:15? 10 o'clock break. Real quick.
All right. Son of Snidely Whipsnide, Jeff Palmer from Colorado Springs. When we download from your site, we paid for the music, and we download the MP3 version of that song. There really is no original copy other than what we downloaded. Do we have to keep the receipt, or how does that work to prove that you paid for that piece of music?
You should, but we know, and so does Harry Fox, and so does BMI. They know you have that copy. The world knows. I mean, but yes, you're supposed to keep a copy. You should keep a copy of your invoice. You really should keep a copy of your invoice.
Thank you.
But by law, we have to keep up with it. One more other quick thing. We're talking about licensing. I missed one of them. Those of you that have websites, be very, very cautious about putting music on your websites. Okay? BMI requires a license for every song you have on your website unless you own that song. What I mean by own is you've made that song originally. Okay? We pay quarterly, annually, and have to track every single hit for every sample we have on our website. We have to document it. I have to supply to BMI the publisher, the writer, the producer, the record number, song title for every song, for every hit, for every day, every quarter, and every year for every song. If you don't have a license for a BMI license for your music on your website, you're eventually going to get in real big trouble. You want to pull it off. Send them to our site. They don't have to buy it. We got most of the samples of everything out there. Send them to our site, and you're covered.
Money, are you implying that if we go to your site to audition some music, that we're actually costing you money every time we click on one of those things and listen to it?
That's part of doing, yes, but that's part of doing business.
Okay.
Click on it 500 times a day. I don't care.
Okay.
Hey, gang, we thank you for everybody coming out. If you have additional questions, check with Elmer. Thank Elmer for coming in.